Hello. Hi, guys. Look who we have on our sofa. It's Manu Bennett. Say hi.
Hi.
Or Kiora, maybe.
Look at these young kids. I love this. Yeah. Hey, guys. What's your name? Connor. Hey, nice to meet you, Connor. What's your name? Aiden? Elliot. Hey, kid, that's a good outfit. I know that guy. Hey.
Guy/girl now, I guess. You're taking
like
it.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's good to have you here again. I heard that you've been traveling around everywhere from Iceland to Ireland. How's that been?
You know, probably one of the greatest gifts of doing what I do is I get the chance to see the world. You know, doing conventions especially, I get to travel to places all around the world, and aside from the jet lag sometimes, it's just awesome. You know, it's awesome to know the world, and I'm glad I get that opportunity. You know, I'm glad to be in Manchester. You know why? You know why I'm glad to be in Manchester? Because my name, Manu, right? When I walk around to people and they go, you know, if I meet people, they don't know I'm an actor, and I introduce myself and I go, I'm Manu. Usually they go, what? Because it's an unusual name, right? But I always say Manu, like Man U, like Manchester United. Seriously.
So they're calling you Man U now?
Yeah, well, you know, that's one
Why
way to
not?
explain it, yeah.
And I think last time I saw you, you were in Paris, and you treated the audience to a little Haka dance. You're pretty good at it. Can you give us a little tease?
No, I pull that out only when it's, yeah. I'm not like a dog, you know.
Special occasions.
But yeah, every now and then I pull that out. You know, the Haka's kind of like something from my culture that's, you know, it's awesome. You know, it's an awesome thing. You know, like sometimes as men, you know, one of the things that was really a privilege for me to do was the show Spartacus, to play Crixus. Like as a man, that was one hell of a role. You know, not only because I got to play a gladiator, but because I got to show my heart. You know, I got to be broken. And as men, sometimes we don't face up to that, you know. Sometimes we're just too busy being men to really show that we've got something here, you know. And so it was interesting playing that role because it gave me a lot of ability to be vulnerable as well as strong. And, you know, but the Haka is a Maori custom, you know, where I guess when you're in the face of battle, you better forget about doing the dishes or making the bed or going clothes shopping. It's time for battle. And the Haka is like a performance that male warriors would do when they were in the face of battle. And it was really about forgetting who you are. And the words are usually tied into your tribe. They're usually, you know, I mean, everybody's watched Braveheart, you know, with you know, Mel Gibson rallying all the little boys from Scotland who came out of their village and now they're standing in the face of the fucking, you know, the battle, you know. Did I just swear? Sorry, kid. But you know, yeah. So you know, as a Maori, I love to be able to know that feeling of doing the Haka. As a matter of fact, when I did Spartacus, before I went out and fought in any arena scene, whenever I had a gladiatorial fight, I'd always go off to the side of the stage before I went on and do the Haka. And you know, it was a way of
Riling yourself up.
yeah, just getting out of your normal mindset, because you know, I guess battle is kind of, you know, I've never been in battle, you know, but sometimes when I meet people, sometimes usually, you know, when I'm in America a lot, I end up meeting guys who are soldiers, who are like in Afghanistan or whatever, and a lot of these guys have got PTSD, but our show was kind of a show that was very popular with these guys, and because, you know, they're over there in the middle of the real battle, and they're losing brothers, and it was something they associated with. And, you know, when this guy walks up to me, you know, like, and this has happened on several occasions, and they walk up and they shake my hand and they go, you know, when I was in Afghanistan, you know, and I lost a lot of my friends, we used to sit around and watch Spartacus, and I don't even know how to have that responsibility. Aside from this, I never became an actor because I wanted to be famous. I never became an actor because I wanted to act. I lost my brother in my arms when I was 14, and that's what made me an actor, because somewhere in the thread of humanity, we all feel the same. And if I can do anything to make that connection with people about where we're from, that's what I do as a job. Sometimes it's bullshit, and I'm sitting on a set with a bunch of stupid actors, all on their phones. Have Twitter, Facebook. But when I get that little moment where I read a script and it says, you got to put it all on the line, that's what I like to do. And I think I got that opportunity with Crixus. Sometimes I get it with Slade, but I get it with Slade.
Well, certainly people are really happy to see you back as Slade Wilson on Arrow.
Oh, okay. On a positive note.
Absolutely. But you created a bit of a storm on Twitter with that whole sort of thing of Mark Guggenheim and Stephen Amell were sort of welcoming you back for their finale, but you were sort of denying you were in it.
Well,
what was that
you know, that was about somebody saying I was going to be on the show before I'd even signed the contract.
Uh-huh. Oh, right.
And nobody has the right to do that, right? So I wrote back WTF, because you know, I own me. Mm-hmm. They don't own me until I sign a contract, right? And so that happened, and then I wrote in Twitter, assumption is the mother of all ... because really it wasn't right for them to make that announcement before I'd signed a contract. At the end, me and Stephen and Mark Guggenheim made a really interesting, you know, circumstance on Twitter, because initially it was real, and then we went, this has got a lot of reaction, hasn't it? Mm-hmm. Let's play with it. So we just played with it a bit. But at the end of the day, I said to Mark Guggenheim, why don't we use that line? Assumption is the mother of all ... I mean, when I wrote that on Twitter, it was kind of like meant to be the swear word. But when we had the discussion and we ended up doing the scene, we made it a line like, you know, assumption is the mother of all failures. That was not a line in the script. It was a line between us initially, and we used it in the script. But, you know, sometimes you just got to stand your ground, and I don't mind standing my ground. When you're in this industry, there's a lot of bullshit. Sorry, kid. And you got to stand your ground. You know, you can get beat up in this industry big time, and you know, sometimes you know, maybe say a bit too much, but you know, when you're in there with some really creative people that want you 100%, you know, sometimes you got to stand your ground. You know.
Well, it was great to see you back, and I know that. Because of the Twitter reaction and things like that, you are back, and you're now back for season 6. It's been announced recently by Stephen Amell for multiple episodes. Any idea what kind of arc you'll be taking?
I mentioned my son in season 1, and
in the finale again, I guess.
That's about as much information as I can give you. But you know, I was pretty amazed that they could take the Slade character and bring it back into relationship with Oliver, you know, after killing his mother. Mm-hmm. You know, it was a big leap of faith to try to convince an audience that you could do something like that and come back to the original relationship after something like that had happened. However, I always believed that, you know, season 1 was about such a strong relationship between Oliver and Slade, that the audience has a heart that belongs to that story. And the Mirakuru kind of was like, you know, it's like having somebody who's an alcoholic or something, and then they go to AA and they come out of it redeemed, and you just, you know, you have to make a decision that, you know, you can accept this person back. And I couldn't believe they could pull that off in that one episode, but they did. And now Oliver and I are back to kind of like an original relationship, which is really phenomenal, you know. I mean, when I killed his mother, when I did that scene, I thought there was no coming back from that. I actually thought I'd come to Comic-Cons and women would go like, "You bastard," you know. But it was interesting because when you lay the foundations of a real character, when you play vulnerability, especially when you play a character that really doesn't live on a surface level, but you know, and as an actor, you have this opportunity to go deep. You can, or you don't have to. I mean, some actors can just really put it on the surface level. Clint Eastwood can go one character and be a very, very, very strong character. You know, I tend to act so that I've got that, but then you go deep and you see the emotion, and somehow, you know, like, I believe we're all like that. Again, I refer to men, you know, tough boy, you know. It's seldom that we really reveal ourselves, even to our partners, you know. And you know, there's this side of life that you know, like, I find it my responsibility sometimes, and you know, because I chose this art because of difficulty in my early life, I find it the beautiful opportunity is to show emotions, to show sort of men on two sides, tough and vulnerable, and that's what I work on. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that kind of brings me to one of the things that was said in the recent season 6 trailers. Slade says we walk in two worlds, and it's hard to walk in those two worlds. So can you explain what that means?
I think that's a setup. No, well, you know, I mean, it's a, you know, it's interesting when I was looking at Steve's face when I did that scene. I looked at Steven, I didn't look at Oliver. I looked at Stephen and Mel. And when I played the scene, I wanted to find as much truth in it as I could. And I remember looking at Stephen, like, he's got kids and I've got kids. And half the time I kind of like have this mixed relationship with Stephen and Mel. He's kind of a quiet guy, and him and me don't talk that much, to be honest, right? He's very busy. Everyone wants to talk to him. He's number one on the call sheet. And we don't really talk that much. We shake hands. We know we work well together. We know it. I know he knows it, and I know it. But when I was looking at his face in that scene, and it's such a great line, we walk in two worlds, you and I. But it can't go on forever. What a statement. What a great statement to say to another man. You know, and it can mean so many things. But when I looked at Steve, it was one thing that sort of, you know, because I don't know him that well, but I watched his Twitter feeds and stuff over the last couple of months, and he was on holidays and he was with his kids. And I've got 3 girls. And, like, you know, as an actor, it's such a bullshit world. Sorry, kid. Right? All this fame or whatever the hell it is, you know, it makes no sense. It makes no sense, but we have to live with it, and he has to live with it. And I know that once he went to Hawaii and stayed in a hotel, and he got so hit by fans all over the place that he had to move out of that hotel and go to another hotel. And you know, I know that in his real life that he probably struggles with that fame, right? So when I said to him that line, I kind of slipped out of being Slade and Oliver. I slipped. I sort of meant to be Manu and Steve and Amel. And I looked at him and I said to him, we live in two worlds, you and I. But it can't go on forever. And I spoke to him, and it was a really great moment. But not on my shot. When I did it on my shot, I was a bit tense. I did 2 takes myself, and both times I went, oh, I'm just too... They shot my direction first. I wish it was like Crash, like the movie Crash, when they had De Niro and Pacino. They put 2 cameras on them so that they could get the real moment. They shot me, then they shot him. And when they shot Steve's side, I got it right. And I'll always regret that. I'll always regret that the best take was, but it was better like that because that was when I was addressing him and I was more honest somehow. Yeah.
Well, I think it worked. Are you guys excited to see him in Arrow season 6?
Yes.
Absolutely. And but you know, obviously, you're saying you're working a lot, mainly really with Stephen Amell on the show. Are you excited to be working with anyone else now?
You know, I mean, it's interesting because you know, like there's a whole bunch of new characters on that show. Yeah. To be honest, in the first episode, which I can't really talk about, can I?
Yeah.
But there was this moment where I'm meant to be with the rest of them. Mm-hmm. You know, and this scene was written that, you know, the group and Slade Deathstroke run off together. And I said to Mark Guggenheim, I said, is this going to be a musical? You know, like, no, but I asked him, I said, it sort of doesn't feel right, does it? And Mark agreed with me, and so there's a very specific scene where I say, it's in the trailer. There's a trailer that's out now for season 6, and I say, you know, I'm gonna, what's the word? I say, you guys will never get off this island in time, or something like that. I'll take my own chances.
Yeah.
And I walk off. Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of just wanting to preserve the strength of the relationship between Slade and Oliver, just on that level, because it's such a sort of standalone little relationship that I just don't want to get caught up in the group and be like, hey, high five, yeah, you know. Anyway, you'll see that in the first episode, yeah.
Well, yeah, because obviously we have that trailer now, and did you know, because at the moment everyone's wondering who survived the island, did you know at the time when you were shooting the finale that you would be coming back for season 6?
Yeah, of course, yeah. I mean, you know, like Mark Guggenheim rang me, I was a bit, to be honest, when you're sort of involved in this industry, you don't really get a phone call until they need you, you know? And like I knew that, you know, season 1, season 2 of Arrow, we'd done a really good job, you know? There was a really great relationship between Oliver and I. We took the drama, you know, to a really, really nice level. And I thought very, very much in that moment that there was kind of, it suddenly went, and I didn't hear from them. Mark Guggenheim said they wanted me back. They brought me back for 1 episode in season 3, which I kind of, I don't know, I didn't really, and I publicly commented on it, I didn't really feel like I got back into the skin of Slade. It was like this kind of like, it was sort of just a tool to make something work for their storyline and sort of give a glimpse of Slade, but I kind of felt like it was, anyway, I commented on that, whatever. But Mark called me and said, you know, I got to tell you this, Manu, because I rang him from Los Angeles about a year and a half ago, and I said, Mark, you know, the fans really want Deathstroke. What's the story? Like, is there an issue, or is there a problem, or what's going on? Because I don't know why you're not responding to the fans. And at the time, it was because of Batman the movie, you know, and DC had sort of pulled a reserve on Deathstroke because Joe Manganiello, who's actually a friend of mine, Joe's an awesome guy, and if he, you know, I think the Batman movie's going ahead, and you know, he's potentially, I think he's going to play Deathstroke. And I wish him the very best. I mean, Joe's an awesome guy. He's also like that. He's that real superhero height, and he'll look great in the outfit. I mean, I wonder how much grey matter he can create in 90 minutes. You know, the great thing about television is you get to develop characters. It's like slow cooking, slow food. You know, when you cook, when you really cook, you know, you can't just flip something on a frying pan and flip it out. You know, like, to me, working on television creates really strong characters. I think that most people would agree that, you know, today, the quality of television, you have relationships with television shows that really get you invested in the characters, and almost more than film now. But film still has that pedigree. Yet I think that to really create a character, when you get time on, like I remember like watching Vikings and seeing Ratnar, you know, watching his evolution over those series, I loved it, and you know, I try to do that same thing with Crixus or Slade or Alanon in the Shannara Chronicles. I like to cook these characters. You can slowly peel the onion open and people wait for it, and they wait for it, and they wait for it, and it happens, and it's so, I think it's more emotionally shifting. Whereas, you know, a film, you know, Joe's going to get 90 minutes to be Deathstroke, and he might pop on the screen like in the best shot possible with special effects and everything and look amazing as Deathstroke. But it's really going to be what's in his voice and where he's coming from, you know, that'll create Slade Wilson, you know, because Slade Wilson's a complex character. But I wish him the best, and he's a great guy. So I really, really wish him the best.
Well, to me, I think you're always going to be Deathstroke, the Deathstroke. And I'm sure that lots of you guys agree out there as well.
Well, hey.
Personally, I think I'd like to see you take over in the Suicide Squad, because there's an opening there.
Yeah, well, you know, Warner Brothers have started that new series, but I don't think it's going to be me. I think their demographic is kind of like, and I think they're casting people kind of in a certain age group, and so they're sort of going for a certain pitch with that show. But you know, I mean, you know, like right now, I'm really happy and I'm proud to be part of a show called the Shannara Chronicles. Does anybody watch the Shannara Chronicles?
Yes, absolutely.
Put your hand up if you do watch the Shannara Chronicles, right? Only a few people, right? I mean, that book series is an amazing book series, you know, and Terry has been somewhat shortchanged a little bit by the MTV kind of demographic push, and I'll say it, and I don't care that I'm saying it, but our producers have done a really amazing job to make season 2 something special. Season 1, I think we were a product. We were kind of like pushing all these elements that had to make us a television show that would work for a network and work in a certain formula, and we were all kind of just being sort of made a certain shape, and it was still a wonderful season. I only watched the first few episodes, and I didn't see the last 5 or something until just recently on the plane when I was flying. I was on the plane, so I watched it, and I was like, far out. I didn't realize the last 5 episodes were so good. They were actually really, really good. I mean, you know, once Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, and all these things have left, there's people want that fantasy genre, and I think with Shannara, we're presenting it. As a matter of fact, you know, the people that I'm working with in New Zealand on the Shannara Chronicles, because you guys never see the background stuff, they're all the people that did The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, all the makeup artists, all the costume designers, all the set designers. They're #1 New Zealand practitioners. They're our best, and they're doing a great job on Shannara Chronicles visually. Now I think season 2 we've delivered, and it's going to be interesting to see how this show, because we got swapped out from MTV to Spike Television, but you know, we're about to present Shannara Chronicles season 2, which I think is going to change the game for the show, and I'm really sort of excited because they took my character Alan on, and they made some things happen that really challenged me as an actor. And you know, I mean, after doing Crixus and after doing Slade Wilson, sometimes you get pushed into so many directions as an actor. You think like, wow, how can I act more than in these extreme circumstances? They gave me something new on Shannara to play with, and it's as a father, that's how it tested me. You'll see, but it's going to be a really interesting second season. So for you guys who put your hand up, season 2 of Shannara is something special. I feel it. And for you who haven't seen it, if you like my work, watch Shannara Chronicles. It's a bloody good show. Sorry, kid.
I mean, for me, I was wondering as well, because at the moment, certainly after the epic fight scene in the finale and everyone's sort of splintered, you've got Will has gone off to find Eritrea. I suspect that you will be having more of a storyline with Bandon, and then poor King Ander. I mean, he's lost everybody, he's suddenly taken the throne. You know, it seems like they're in quite a dark sort of area. Is it going to get darker?
Definitely. I think that's the one thing that was the one word that needed to be spoken in the room for producers, directors, everybody involved in this show, Shannara, was for it to be darker. Because Terry Brooks's series, the book series, is dark, and we kind of like, as I say, we were kind of like a first series trying to fit shapes as a production, now we've got to the tone I believe really represents Terry Brooks's writing, and they pushed me to the limit. To be honest, they really did. I mean, as I said, you know, like for me, I as an actor, I wanted a good challenge out of Shannara, and they bought it. And when I read the scripts, I was kind of like, whoa, okay, this is a different gear for me, but it's great drama. So yeah,
So
it's definitely darker.
Can you tease anything then about the new stuff that you might be doing?
I asked if Al-Anon could have somebody to care about. And that might sound soft and mushy, but when you add risk and darkness and a lot of sort of self-exploration about whether you've actually got feelings as Al-Anon, because Al-Anon is very, very resolute, you know? Like put it this way, like I see Al-Anon as being like Gandalf and Strider, you know, so I get the ability to play a protagonist that wants to do good for people, but, you know, Al-Anon in the book is so dark. Whenever Al-Anon shows up in Terry Brooks's books, it's like this really dark shadow, you know. And in the first series, they kind of like diluted that by adding humor to a whole bunch of scenes, you know. I always get in trouble when I talk about this shit. Like, I'll get an email tomorrow.
Well, why don't we?
But you know, like in the new series, in the second series now, they sort of take a relationship, a certain relationship, and they make it the risk. And an Al-Anon, who otherwise in the book series is very dark all the time, it allows to humanize him in a certain way. But, you know, I think I managed to do it, and they wrote it in a specific way that you still don't lose that tone of Al-Anon from the books, except, like I said before, as men, we don't show really much of this, enough of this. And in television or when you're making a character, you need, like for Al-Anon, I can't just suddenly break out into a musical and be too emotional or anything like that. But if I just push it a little bit, if it allows me to push a little bit, it moves the audience. I know it moves the audience, and that's kind of what they've done well and executed well in season 2, is that there's all this stuff that's going on that's dark, but there's this one person that they've added that makes Al-Anon struggle more emotionally, you know. And it's you know, it's like if I say it, it doesn't mean much now. But for you, those of you who are a fan of Shannara, I'm sure you're going to like season 2. Because it's about this, you know, and that's what I loved about Spartacus. That's what I loved about the journey of Crixus that I got to play, was, you know, like at the end when I got my head cut off, you know, men walk up to me and they say, I cried. And I'm glad they did, because they hated me for the first season, and I meant for that to be the case. I'll tell you something about that character. Who's a Spartacus fan here? Okay, so when I was in high school, I had a normal, perfect life, right? I used to wear gel in my hair, and I still do. I used to be fashionable. And there was one guy at school who had a mullet haircut and wore death metal shirts and was really angry. And him and me were the worst enemies in high school that you could probably imagine. We hated each other to some degree. I mean, I think he started it, because he came up to me and went, "Hey, yeah, poof, yeah, rap, dance, and poof." You know, he wrote Bennett's and nigger on the school blackboard. I'm sorry, I don't mean to offend anybody, but he wrote that on the blackboard, and I hated. I mean, this guy really wanted he hated me, and I hated him back. I was in a car accident. My mother was killed. People ask about these scars. I got thrown out of the side window. We got hit by a drunk driver. Mother was killed. I got thrown out of the car. I was in a coma for 2 weeks. When I woke up in my hospital bed from a coma 2 weeks later, my worst enemy, Matthew Sisley, was in the hospital room. My worst enemy. Then I found out that he had lost his mother when he was younger. And I didn't know that. I just thought he was an asshole. But I didn't bother to understand who he was. And then I knew. And him and me became best friends, and I was best man at his wedding. I was we're still best friends now. But it was that change, that having an enemy and not understanding your enemy. But then, if you bothered to look, if you bothered to even look, you understand that everybody's got a friggin' heart. Everybody worried, you just got to find out that person's story, right? So that was the premise in which I established the Crixus Spartacus thing. When I was in that bathhouse going like, your wife's gonna be, like this kid's here. I can't do too much Spartacus dialogue because of the kids. But kid, I'm telling you this, right? Never judge your enemy too much until you know them. And it's better to know them, to understand them. Anyway, that's what I based the Crixus Spartacus storyline on. And my producer came up to me after like episode 3 of Spartacus and went, Manu, what are you doing with your character? Like, nobody likes him. We have to start a story with you and Navia, a love story, and nobody's gonna give it, nobody cares about you. We're getting emails from people saying to kill him off. And I said, please, let me make this character like this. Let me have people hate him. Because I'm trying to play something that I've been through. And at the time where it changes and people start having to figure that they hated this person and now it's changing, that's what's going to make a great character, I think, And my producer, he backed me and allowed me to sort of play Crixus in the first season like that. Anyway, yeah, that's that story.
Wise words, certainly. Thank you very much for talking to us. Good luck with Arrow Season 6 and also, obviously, Shannara Season 2. And everyone, give a big round of applause to our guest, Manu Bennett.
Thank you.